Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to those of you in the central time zones and points west. My name is Paul Kiewit, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this month's edition of Wild Wednesday webinar. Wild Wednesday webinars are produced by MIPA in cooperation with other regional associations, including TISPA, OPA, UMAP, PPAW, PPA Chicago, and our friends at PPA Midwest. And we've got an exciting lineup. We've got a great presentation today on an idea and concept that's new to a lot of people and could be a great new source of revenue and value that you can add for your customers. I'd like to remind all of you that there's a chat box on your screen in the left-hand side. If you have any questions during Matt's presentation, feel free to type them in, or if you have some comments, I'll be monitoring that, and we'll try to take care of you during the presentation. Feel free to ask them while he's going. Matt likes a lot of interaction in his presentations. At the top of the screen, you'll see that you can download a copy of this presentation for your use as well. Also, I'd like you to mark your calendars for October 28th. That will be next month's Wild Wednesday webinar. We're going to have Catherine Graham. Catherine's with Promo Kitchen and just a fantastic speaker. Some of the women on the call may have heard her speak at the Women's Leadership Conference. She's going to be doing an hour webinar on time management, and I'm sure all of us could use a little bit more time. So without much further, I'm going to introduce Matt Kaspari. Matt's going to talk about gamification. So Matt, take it away and tell us what it is.
Sounds good. Thank you, Paul. Like Paul said, my name is Matt Kaspari. I'm the owner of Caspo Incorporated. It's a distributorship based in Denver, Colorado. We've been around for a little over 12 years. I've known Paul since I first entered the industry, and Paul is an amazing guy. And I think Paul, for those of us that know him, Paul has not only sold promotional products creatively, but he's encouraged all of us in the industry to not only sell promotional products creatively, but to live creatively as well. And this talk is one of my attempts at living creatively. So what we're going to talk about today is gamification. And there's two things I want you guys to leave with today, and that's one, hopefully an understanding of gamification. For those of you that have been introduced to the concept before, I hope you gain another nugget or two from the talk. And second, I want you guys to have a tool that you can bring back to your sales team or to your company and make things a little bit more fun. So before I jump into gamification, I wanted to just look at games as a whole for a second. So if we look at games, games have been around since the beginning of time. I believe games started when humans first started interacting with one another. If you look at oral traditions, such as the Aboriginal folks or Native Americans, these folks don't have as rich of a written history, but they've been around for a long time, and they were playing games with sticks, with rocks. They played some games with balls, kind of like a modern-day soccer. And you can even, if you research games like I have, you can see that in about 5000 BC, some of the first game pieces were found in Turkey. These are little small carved stones that were painted. Similar pieces were found in Iraq and Syria around 3000 BC. So you can just tell that games have played an integral part in every culture throughout time. And if you fast forward to nowadays, our culture, let's just spend a few seconds looking at how games show up in our culture. We have video games, right? I mean, how many kids or adults are playing video games, computer games, things of that sort, right? That's definitely how gaming has evolved. If we look at sporting events, right, we have youth sports. And look at how much opportunity that creates for our youth to not only interact, but to interact socially with a set of rules, right? So soccer, there's a set rules. It's not just chaos. There's rules on how they play. There's ways to score. There's ways to win. So then kids are able to excel inside a set of rules. which I think the analogy is just like business, right? And we have rules of business. There's ethics, there's morals, there's tax laws. We have a set of rules in a business, but yet some seem to excel faster than others. So I think games, the main point of this slide is I just wanted to look at games and acknowledge that they're an integral part to every society. So what is gamification? So the definition by Bunchball, some gamification leaders, they say it's applying game mechanics and game design techniques to engage and motivate people to achieve their goals. So if you think for a second, basically what that means is applying games, right? Using games to get people to either change or reiterate their behavior, right? So using game to accomplish something. And when we get into some examples a little bit later, you'll see how gamification is being applied to Fortune 50 companies, as well as an example with a small distributorship like mine. So every game has features, right? There's so many different features, right? Monopoly has different features than Chutes and Ladders. Board games have different features than sporting events. Wrestling is going to have different features than baseball or basketball. Poker, card games, right? All games have features. I believe that there's 5 core features that show up in basically every game. And these features are, I believe, what makes gaming so fun or so natural for humans to play. So the first is uncertainty of outcome. So I think, the suspense of watching a professional sports game, right? You have 2 good teams. We don't know the outcome. Creates a good social bonding event. It's just fun because you don't know what's going to happen. I go play chess with my dad. I've never beaten my dad. I think I've probably played over 5,000 times. But every time I still think I can beat him. So that uncertainty of outcome always draws me back to go and play. He probably gets a little bored of beating me all the time, but it's still fun. So number 2, you need agreed upon rules, right? If not having rules, it's just chaos, and then it's not really fun. And I don't know if you guys can think of when you were younger growing up. In my neighborhood, we would always be playing some type of sport, but there was always some kids that never wanted to play by the rules. Or I had an older brother who sometimes would change the rules so he would win no matter what. But that's not any fun either, right? So you need some agreed upon rules, some set of rules. The third is competition. Competition is natural for humans, and it's a good thing because our species needs competition to survive, right? That's how we've been able to do what we've been able to do. Now, collaboration, I believe, is key when designing a game for your company, and it was for ours because collaboration, I believe, that's where synergies happen, right? That's where teamwork, that's when you can do the impossible. And so to me, collaboration is a form of competition. So for us, my team, right, we collaborate, we're competing, and it's not just against other promotional distributorships. What we look at is we're competing for the dollar. Right? If we work with a company and I prove to them that promotional products is an effective medium, well, then I can start chipping away at the TV budget, maybe start getting a little bit more of the outdoor advertising budget, right? So there's different ways that we collaborate and compete out there in the world. Number 4, you need a prescribed set of goals, right? We need some outcome. Soccer is not just played indefinitely because then you would never know who wins. So there's a time set, right? You want to have the most amount of goals when the time stops. Okay, similar to a lot of other sports. But you can think of Monopoly, right? The goal is to get all the properties, get all the money, bankrupt everyone else, and you win because you have all the money. So you need some prescribed set of goals that you're trying to achieve. And number 5, which I think is by far the most important, and games are fun. And so if you think about that, right, I believe, I know I've had a ton of fun playing games my entire life, and I imagine you guys can think of times where you've had fun as well. And actually, if you guys can for a second, just step back and think about any time in your life. It could have been as a kid, growing up, or maybe more recently playing games with your kids or your significant other, whatever it is. But where I want to go in this space is, I'm thinking about a time I used to have sleepovers. My friends would stay the night when we were younger, and I remember we would play video games all night. We would try to beat games, or we'd be playing each other in football or whatever. But my mom would get very mad because we'd be up, all night. And so she would wake up and yell at us to shut off the TV or go to bed. And I just remember that time, or that emotion that I would have I would get lost in the moment. I was just playing a game, having so much fun with my friends. I didn't really care that I was going to stay up all night and sleep all day. So it's that emotion that you guys can, maybe you're playing Monopoly with your grandpa, whatever it is, that emotion, though, that you have felt when you've been completely lost in the moment. Just imagine if we could get that same emotion, that same thing that you felt at that time, if you could get that into your company, right, at some level. And I believe games is a way to do that, because throughout my life, there's been many times when I was playing games and I got lost in the moment. So this graph here that you guys are looking at, I just wanted to highlight this. So when designing a game for your company, you really want to get that sweet spot where it's saying the flow, where everything just flows. You lose track of time. You're just working hard to accomplish something. And you don't want to get in those other sectors, right? So you guys know your skill level of your employees. And if you make it so easy that their skill level precedes it, it's going to be a boring game, and that's not very fun. And the opposite end of that, if you make the game so difficult and so hard to compete in it, people are just going to be anxious, and that's not a good feeling around the office. When we designed the game, we were very mindful about not distracting them from their existing work, but to do something that would help them do their work more effectively and have a little bit more fun. So when we look at game mechanics, what I'm talking about on game mechanics, it's the rules of the game, rules of interaction. So, if you think of games just as a whole, there's all these different levels, right? Football, for instance, you have 11 people on each team. You have, you can't go until the ball is hiked. There's all these rules of interaction, right? You kick a field goal, that's 3 points. You score a touchdown, that's 6. All of these rules of interaction, what we call game mechanics. Well, when we think about gamification, which to me, I believe that's using gaming in business, these are 5 design features that the experts have said that you want to consider. Now, maybe you don't have every one of these in there, but you want to look at these as being 5 core ones. And if you look online, there's a list of probably like 25 or 50 or something like that, of different features that you can think about. Now, before I get into examples, I'm going to kind of point out, so just look at these and kind of remember these, because I'm going to go, when I talk about the examples, we'll see how each one of them exhibits some of these at some level. Okay, does this sound better now too? Sorry about that, I'm just reading these comments. Okay, so the first example I'd like to hop into, Nike Plus. I don't know if any of you guys have this app, but Nike, the idea with them designing this app was they were noticing that running was gaining huge popularity in the United States. And what they were noticing is they were not gaining the market share that they're used to, right? There's other brands, ASICS, New Balance. There was a lot of brands that were just crushing the running market. So as smart as Nike is, right, they sat back and wanted to come up with an app that would allow people to track, share, and compare results, all by earning points. And so what this did was they used social, right? So you download this app, they're capturing your data, so they're finding out your age, demographics. So not only this is a good research tool for them, for a market that they want to gain more in, they actually created a tool that people are using and collaborating with, okay? 2007, they had 500,000 users. 7 years later, 11 million users. During that time, they were able to gain a 14% market share of the running shoes. So very successful for Nike. And what they used, if we think of that last slide, they used points, skill points, they used leaderboards, and challenges. So if other people download the app, you can challenge your friend who can run further, who can run faster. So a great gamification tool. Starbucks rewards. So many of you guys probably have this card, right? And this was Starbucks. Their main point of this was to get people to pay faster, which they accomplished that. They know similar to Chipotle and many other restaurants. If you move people through your queue faster, more people are likely to come in. If you see a long line, they're not getting detoured. So it's very important to get people through the line fast. Plus, people are busy, so the faster we can do this, the better they are. But the second part of it was they wanted to use it as an incentivized system, right? So now you have the rewards card. They have some of your information. They might be able to ping you and say, oh, come in now for a free coffee, and it expires in 2 days. Or they can give you birthday, fill up your cup for your birthday. And I think Starbucks, they tie to that human, they do virtual badges. So it's almost like it's an internal thing, right? If you buy enough coffee, you can become a gold member. And if you buy more, you become silver. So the more money you spend with them, the higher your status is. So they kind of tie into that natural thing of status and achievement. In Starbucks, they, in an article I read, they said by 2014, 25% of their people were paying with this rewards card. So another successful application. The third example I want to look at is Chipotle's Scarecrow game. I don't know if you guys have downloaded this one. It's not quite as popular as the Starbucks reward, but this is an app I'd recommend downloading. It was Chipotle's attempt to further communicate their food with integrity message. So Chipotle being more of a non-traditional, not really doing commercials and doing things of that sort, they had partnered with Moonbot. And what they were doing with this app was, through their research, they were finding that a lot of people were not quite understanding what Chipotle was about. So yeah, it's a good burrito for a good price, so that's why they've been able to grow the way they have. But it's really, there's some philosophical things that Chipotle believes in, and that's the food chain. How food is coming from farm to our mouths, right? So the game, the app, you're the Scarecrow, and you're trying to defeat Crow Foods Incorporated, which is a fictitious company that has affected the supply chain of food. So they're putting pesticides all over the vegetables. They're treating the animals unhumanely and pumping them full of steroids so they get bigger faster. So through the game, you go through these different levels, and you see how to bring natural, healthy food back to the people. And so once you complete each level with a 3-star or better, at the end of it, you get a buy one, get one free Chipotle burrito. So if you guys haven't downloaded the game, I'd recommend you do it. At the end of it, you get a tasty buy one, get one free burrito. The first day, they had 35,000 downloads. Within the first week, they had over 250,000 downloads. And Chipotle, one that hadn't really captured a whole lot of data. They weren't really into the email market automation yet. And this was one of the ways that they were able to capture a lot of people's emails, and very effective gamification tool. Now to my example, right? So those were some large companies, how they're using gamification, right? They have resources different than most of us. They have a lot of money, a lot of people, right? So I wanted to give, just to show you guys that gamification is being used out in the world. And, if there's ways that you can integrate it into your clients or even your own company, which I want to go over here. So our game was called Cascades. The reason it was called Cascades was for a few reasons, but the word aid, ADE, is an action of. So the first round of our game was actually called Caspo's Game of Action, but we got creative after the second round and thought that Cascades was a catchy name. So that's where the name came from. But it was the leadership team of mine. We were sitting around, and we're a younger company. There's a lot of energy. We have a lot of fun. But as you grow as a company, what we were experiencing, we were evolving. We were getting more tied to the numbers, right? We were getting more sophisticated. Our systems were becoming better where we could look at the numbers a lot better. But what that was doing was, to me, it was taking the fun out of it a little bit. Now, making money's fun, but it was just taking the fun out of what we were all doing. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to bring back some of that funness and remember why we were all doing this, right? We could go work at anywhere we want. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And the main goal was to increase sales. And But what we wanted to do was to build a game that didn't just focus on the numbers. We all know we have to hit our sales numbers. We all know that we have to be profitable, otherwise the company, goes away. But what we looked at as a team, and through some conversations, we were finding out that everybody loved the action that led up to a sale. So we built the business by networking as kind of our main thing. We've used LinkedIn and Twitter and some of that to gain exposure. But really what we've done is network or meet people and then ask for introductions, things like that. So what we said is, okay, let's create the game around action. Let's look at what action leads to sales. And then we will create the game mechanics around the action, because that's the fun part, and we can, track and reward that. And then at the end of it, get more sales, which is what we're really after. So back to those game mechanics. So what we did, we chose 4 of the top 5 that we have in our game. So the first mechanic we used was points. So we had to track the action. So what we did was we had a point system. There was lower level points for lower level action. So a LinkedIn follower, a LinkedIn connection, or a Twitter follower, or if you met somebody at a networking event, we assigned a very low point value for that. But we did want to acknowledge that you are doing something, right? And it could potentially lead. Now, if you could schedule a meeting with somebody and do a discovery, find out if promotional products could help solve a problem that they had in their company, right? If you had a discovery meeting, that was valued a little bit higher. Because at my company, we've done the numbers. We know how many of those meetings we usually need to get a sale, and how many sales we need to reach our numbers. So, and then another fun part we had with the points. So we get many referrals from our clients, but we have a very soft sell approach, and so we're not the best at asking for a referral. So we'll get referrals, but we're not really generating ourselves. We're not proactively asking for people. Once we had a successful campaign with them, we're not always asking for a referral. So what we did was we assigned a very high point value to a referral. And the reason we did that was twofold. One, we wanted people to do it, right? Because it's a high point value. And second, we knew that was the quickest way to a sale. When you have a happy client introduce you to one of their friends or their colleagues, that's a real easy sell. So we wanted to encourage that type of action. The second mechanic was levels. What we did on this was 2 different types of levels. So the individual leveling up, right? So once the individual reached level 1, they had some incentive, right? Level 2, they had a little bit better incentive, and so on. The team levels is one of the things that we use to create that collaboration I talked about, right? If we only had individual levels, the problem that we saw was we thought we would get more internal competition than we would want, right? You would have Cam competing against Chris, trying to one up each other, but that's not really our culture, nor was that the game we wanted to create. So what we did was we had these team levels, right? So as a team, and it didn't matter on what level the individual did, if the team reached a certain amount, we would all participate in that reward, right? So it was things like take the team out to dinner with significant others. We did a Rockies game. And there was fun things that we did, but all of it was usually building around collaboration and increasing our morale. The last little part about the levels that we did, and this was through talking with the team, and the example I'm giving is the 3rd iteration of our game, Cascades. And so one of the things that we found earlier was we do sales meetings every year, and we do them in the mountains a lot because we're in Colorado. But one of the things that we wanted to do was maybe go to San Diego for a sales meeting. So what we did was the leaders on the team, we had to draft up how much we needed to increase sales, how much profitability we needed to create extra so that we wouldn't take a hit from the game, right? But it's just something that I want to highlight that, using that collaboration was something that was awesome for our team. Now, I'm getting a question here real quick. It says, how did you track the achievement points? Did you use a database? Okay, so what they're asking is, did we use a CRM? So my company, we use Salesforce, and we use another application called Trello. So what we were finding is we were trying to complicate it. We were trying to use our CRM to track everything, but what we found out was that was taking more time. So what we ended up doing was very basic. We just used an Excel spreadsheet. Now, just taking from this question, it kind of depends the size of your company too. So we're pretty small. It wasn't like we had to manage 50 salespeople, so you might need a more sophisticated tool. But really what we did was we just put people's name in Excel, and then we used each week. Each week they had to turn in their points, and which kind of segues to my leaderboard. So we didn't have anything sophisticated. I mean, depending the size of your company or how much money you wanted to put into it, you could probably make some really cool leaderboards. All we did for the leaderboard was we sent out a weekly email. And on the weekly email, everybody was on that email. And we would have each person's name and how many points they acquired the week before. And the reason we did that wasn't to ostracize anybody or make people feel awkward. The point is that peer pressure, right? I can see if you're not carrying your weight, and you can see if I'm not carrying my weight. And then at the end of each individual, at the end of all the individuals, we had a team score. And the team score would show us where we were year to date, so that way we could all rally around. We all knew what we were shooting for, right? We all wanted to spend a few days on the beach and work really hard. So the fourth was challenges. This was something that we kind of brought in to make it more fun. So and we wouldn't do a challenge every single week, but as you're playing the game, we played this third game for 6 months. Okay, the third iteration of Cascades was 6 months long, and I would encourage you guys to do a set time. Otherwise, I think people get lost in the game. There's no end point. Back to that prescribed set of goals. You need to make sure that you have an end point. We were doing a quarterly game, but we felt like the first 2 times we didn't get quite as much traction, and right when people were really getting into the game, the game was about to end. So that's why we ended up choosing 6 months. But, what we did with these challenges was to keep people engaged. So, 1 week I would just, like on a Tuesday, I'd email everybody and say, everybody who gets a referral this week gets a $20 Starbucks gift card. We would add whoever gets the most sales this week, $100 gift card to Garden Grace, one of the restaurants here locally. So what we did with the challenges was to keep people engaged. We wanted to, sometimes you're in month 3 or 4 and it becomes habit. Yes, I send my points in every week. So we would use this as a little way to spike action, to remind them what we were doing. So you guys might be wondering, well, what were the results? I mean, we put a lot of time and effort at the leadership level to develop something like this. And what I would like to say is, it's funny, when I was first studying gamification about 5 years ago and was really trying to figure out how I could start implementing it or how I could start selling it to my clients. And, I just remember reading that word, blissful productivity. And from a few slides ago, I mentioned that, blissful productivity. I think all of us want to create that type of, productivity at our company where everybody is just flowing, things are going great. It's like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Everything is just working great. So I experienced that in my company, especially by the third iteration of the game. I mean, it was fun. We were a collaborative environment, but to see people helping one another, giving each other tips on, hey, maybe this could work good if you want to upsell them, or they're designing campaigns, and they were more collaborative because they knew at the end of the day, hey, someone has a fish on the hook right now. Let's all help them get that in because that's going to be better for all of us. And so, we saw amazing results, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys, because it was that emotion that I talked to you guys about. I experienced as a young kid or even as an adult playing Cards Against Humanity last weekend with my girlfriend and a group of friends, right? We stayed up way too late playing a game. So I just think I think games are awesome, and I wanted to share that with you guys today. I have a few last remarks before I open it up for questions and discussion. But, like I said, man, games are fun. And what we do is fun. We're not doing heart surgery. Now, it doesn't mean that what we do is not important. It's just, what we do is fun. And so the more fun you can make it, I think it's good for everybody. And when you design a game, make sure you have clear game mechanics. For ours, it was those four things. Very simple. We didn't want to distract them. They shouldn't have to think too hard about it. It should just be part of their daily routine, but it gives them a little bit more to think about. Maybe you should make a few more calls. Maybe you should ask for a referral more often. Just all of those things to keep top of mind of things that they should have done anyway. And don't overcomplicate the game. That's one of the things that, I can complicate a lot of things. So some other guys on my leadership team were always making me to dumb down the game a little bit. Don't make it so that they're so focused on the game that they forget what we're really doing, which is selling promotional products. So lastly, be creative and have a ton of fun while doing this. So that's the talk, and I would love to open it up. And it looks like one of the first questions came in, and it says, I missed the beginning of the call. How do I make money on this? Well, I don't. The beginning was more talking about games, but to me, the way to make money on this, or the way that we made money on gamification, was we increased our sales numbers. And we did it by not just focusing on numbers and sales. Sometimes the more boring side of sales is your quotas and stuff like that. So we used a game to track people's action, which led to more sales. And that's how we made money on the game, to answer that question. A lot of good stuff coming in here. So yes, I love this from Dan here. Try pitching this to HR departments you're dealing with. Yes, exactly. We have done this. We applied a game in the healthcare industry. We won a pyramid award, a silver pyramid award in 2012 for doing just that, Dan. What we did was, through asking the client many different questions, we found out that they wanted a healthier workforce. They believe happier, healthy workforce, more productivity. So we used promotional products and combined with their year-end gift, and we rolled out a game with a pedometer that tracks steps. And they created a whole game. People went to the Rockies game. That's how they were recognized. So, yeah, I think I like your answer. That's another way you can make money. Pitch it to HR department. Okay, let me read these questions here. Okay, I may have missed this. How do you include non-sales staff? That's a great question. So we are in our 5th iteration of Cascade, and we've restructured the company a little bit, and so we're actually dealing with that right now. I don't have an easy answer, but I would love, you guys can have my contact information, would love to talk to you offline. We're kind of running into that same issue. So this was all for our sales team, but we wanted the whole team to be involved. And so what we're looking at is, so for the back end, right, on the back end of the office, people that are making sure orders are delivered on time with correct logos without having mess ups. You know, how many times do we put an order into a supplier? We think everything is getting done correctly, but all of a sudden we have to expedite shipping because someone dropped the ball. I'm not blaming suppliers. It's the distributor's fault as well. But how many times do we lose money because we have to expedite shipping when it's not needed? So what we're trying to look at is how do we create a point system to include, you know, our most important thing in promotional products, which is making sure products get there on time with correct logos. So it's a good question, Scott. I don't have an answer for you, but I'd love to collaborate and see if we can put our brains together. Okay, Jane Mitchell. I mean, by selling it to my clients, and I think that talks about the HR, and I think it really depends also the size and the complexity of your company, right? If you're running a one-person shop, I think it's a little bit harder on leveraging the gamification. I mean, and you're also, now I like when I believe it was Dan mentioned the pitching to HR departments, because HR departments, depending on the size of the company, everybody can enact a game, right? But some of these larger companies, I mean, Chipotle, we do a lot of promotional work for them, but my company, I don't have the size or the complexity that could develop the Scarecrow game. So, and obviously they use other agencies. So I think it kind of depends on your clientele and figuring out a creative way. One of the things that I believe, and we're currently doing it, so there's a lot of companies that are using gamification. So how are they rewarding their employees, or how are they rewarding people? Like for the Starbucks reward, imagine if you started, what happens if you become a platinum member and they get some really nice coffee mug, right, shipped out to them, engraved with their name on it. So I think promotional products are a perfect incentivizing tool if you can get a company to use the gamification. That makes a little bit of sense. Look at that, Jessica. That's an awesome question. Can you use gamification in your products as well to provide incentive to purchase product? We've been toying around with that currently right now. We actually we did a little meeting with some high-level folks that we were not working with. We knew them working at some large companies, and we've kind of been toying around with a little military type game. It's a red team, blue team type of thing. We've started applying the techniques, but we haven't seen it move the meter yet. We're not getting rich off of it yet. But I believe that you could apply gamification to sell more promotional products. We just haven't quite figured that out. So. Paul, I don't know if you're seeing the same stuff I'm seeing, or if any other questions are coming in, or. You guys have any last minute questions, or? Paul, if there's no more questions coming in, I'm glad you put my email address on here. So if anybody would like to email me, would love to have a conversation with anybody about if there's any more detail that you'd like to have, or even just to collaborate and see how you guys might be able to. I love talking creative ideas. I'm a free spirit like Paul, so well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time, and have an awesome day.
Well, thank you, everyone. Hopefully my microphone's unmuted now. Uh, I had to switch back to my headphones and I lost there. Thank you very much, Matt. And for those of you still on, hope to see you next month for another Wild Wednesday webinar with Catherine Graham. Please fill out the surveys for CAS points and to give us important feedback. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.